The scripture reading from today is from Micah 6, verse 6 through 8. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, when 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
Well, we thank you and we praise you for all that you have done, you are doing in the life of your children. God, as we go through these uncertain times, we are certain that you are with us. So, Lord, as we are finding new ways to do old things, we are thankful that you lead, God, and direct those decisions. And Lord, as your daughter, as I said at this desk, and face these people who work with me, we pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart is acceptable in your sight, for you are my strength and my This morning is part 4 and the last part of our topical sermon. Basically, he said we have a subject that we were talking about in light of all that's been happening in the nation. We are still using the prophet Micah because Micah was called forward as an ordinary person to do extraordinary things for God. And I just want to acknowledge that as we review what we talked about the last couple of weeks about justice and peace, that when this message ends today, it does not end our work. We still have work to do to be God's hands and feet in the world. These last 4 months of 2020 have been life-changing. We've been juggling parenting and work, Zoom conferences and training for some of us, homeschooling for others, committee work, running a household, whether it's by ourselves or like me and my sister, a household of teens and preteens, while following all the pandemic guidelines. It is tiring. And because of all of this, my sister and I decided we were going to take a 2-week break. So we called some people, we packed up the little people, and we put them in the care of some trusted friends. Our plan was to work and clean and freshen up and do some painting in certain areas in the house, but mostly rest. And for those of you who are wondering why we sent the children away, those extra hands that could have helped us, it's because of those children that we are doing the things that we need to do. So you know that as a child or having children around, when you hear the words clean up, for a child who does not want to do chores, the word clean up translates into cover up. And as adults, when we want things done, we have an idea of how we want them to look and how they should be. And sometimes that gets lost in the translation with young people. So we decided that we were going to do this alone. Everyone started with painting our ceilings. And to paint ceilings, you must move stuff so that you can prep the walls and place ladders. And that was a huge mistake. We uncovered a conspiracy, months of stashing things behind stuff, in closets, in drawers, under rugs, under beds, book bags, boxes. And now we see some stains on the wall that we can't identify and on the floor that explains why they wanted to rearrange their furniture. Ironically, we take this same mindset into the world and what we're experiencing right now. In Maryland, we started off with a 2-week break to clean and sanitize our church building because of this unknown virus. 2 weeks. And now we're in a major undertaking. No one expected to see what we're seeing now. We have been forced to deal with things that had been hidden under regulations, in closets, behind closed door meetings, under glass ceilings, color-coded messages, and conspiracies. These items need our immediate attention. It cannot be done by a few people. It has to be an all hands on deck approach by everyone. We find ourselves dealing with 3 pandemics, the health pandemic that comes from COVID-19, the injustice pandemic that we're seeing all over the world as people protest for equity, and the economic pandemic because of employment or unemployment and work conditions. These concerns are occurring in a wide geographic area, which makes them a pandemic. It affects the world. And because it affects the world, we have to rethink how we see our healthcare working, our financial systems, our educational systems, our work environments, our community interactions with each other, our local, national, and global affairs. Not watching the news, denying their existence, or ignoring the facts of the pandemic won't make them go away. They're very present in our lives, and we must find a safe way to deal with it. We've been talking about justice and peace for the last 2 weeks, and that is the premise of this 4-part series. Justice in the way that we behave and how we treat each other fairly and equitably, and how we do the right things for everyone. And peace, as it is said in the Bible, where we feel complete and successful and fulfilled, whole, harmonious, secure, therefore leading to our safe well-being. As Christians, we are called to be in a relationship with God, and in that relationship, we are called to help build up the country that we find ourselves citizens of. And we must try to live up to the words that were written to build this country, even though they have not always been lived up to. Micah reminds us that God was judging the people during that time. And although I don't think that God gave us COVID-19 as a judgment, I do think that God is using this time for reflection and correction. There are a lot of things that need to come to the forefront and be dealt with. We must seek justice and love mercy and walk humbly with God in order for it to happen. And then we are in a time where we must embrace the Pledge of Allegiance as it was written for us to do. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, for all. That can only be done if we look at the words and live out the words in the Declaration of Independence, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, those among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then we also talked about John Wesley, our founder, and how he wanted us to practice individual and community works of piety and mercy. And as a reminder, again, they are prayer, reading scripture, worship, sharing our faith, doing good works, giving generously, seeking justice, ending oppression and discrimination where we find it, and addressing the needs of the least, lost, and left out. When we do all these things we've been talking about for these last 3 weeks, we will see change, and change is very much needed. Change people, change things. Change people, change things. We don't have to make up stories like I did last week about people working together. We have real life stories that are happening right in front of us. We have controversies around wearing a mask and reopening businesses, and about statues and monuments and students returning to school. Pastor Lenora and Jane and I speak twice a week about different subjects. We meet twice a week about the things that are happening because we're concerned, because things are constantly evolving and we have to keep abreast of it and think what's best for the congregation. And we talked about these last two, the removal of the statues and the students returning to school. For me, seeing and people who are like-minded, seeing the monuments being placed throughout the city is a reminder of a horrific part of our history. Knowing that people work hard to camouflage its meaning is unsettling. Excuse me. I respect that some people disagree with me. I will say that up front, and I respect your opinion. But please consider reading the history behind the placements of those statues and monuments, because oral history sometimes changes the facts. Seeing those depictions is like, for those of you who have been in relationships that ended horribly, the worst relationship that you can think of, a relationship where you were abused and dehumanized and you were economically dependent on someone else. You were under someone else's control. They took away your rights to move around freely. They dictated how you lived your life daily. That is what seeing those statues are to some people, because that was a real life memory. And we can break away from that thought and say that the person can do better. But when the people did better, people came in and destroyed it. This is gaslighting at its finest. And then going back to school, going back to an educational environment before we are ready is not wise. I do not want to put my children at home or the children in the church at risk, nor do I want to risk the lives of the educators or the support personnel. My little people go to 3 different schools. My sister is Assistant Director of Human Resources and Dining Services at the University of Maryland, College Park. That makes 4 schools. I'm adjunct faculty at Wesley Theological Seminary. That's 5 schools in one household. Pastor Lenore goes to Wesley Theological Seminary. And caution is needed. We have to think about what this pandemic or what possibly getting exposed can do to them in the long run. As professing Christians, we are baptized believers. And when we were baptized, we said that we would accept the freedom and power God gives us to resist evil, injustice, and oppression, wherever forms they may present themselves. And they are presenting themselves. We acknowledge that we are individuals and we have rights. But as individuals, we must work together. We're like walking puzzle pieces, and we need these pieces to fit together so that we can see the full picture and live out the great mission. Yes, we are different, but we were created equal. We have different levels of abilities and gifts and talents, and we are unique, and we are all loved by God. We must find ways to accommodate each other's needs and embrace uniqueness. I want to share a picture with you, and I'm hoping I can get this to work right. Here it is. Shake your head if you can see this picture. Okay. For those of you who are on the phone, there are 4 pictures side by side. The first one is 3 people who went to a baseball game, and there's a fence in front of them. And they were offered equality. All of them got a box to stand on to see over the fence. The really tall person can see really well over the fence. The medium height person can just see up to their head. But the short person still can't see. So they were given equal sized boxes. All it did was just raise up where they exactly were. Then the next picture is a picture of those same 3 people, and it addresses equity. The tall person is standing on the ground because that tall person can naturally see over the fence. And then the medium-sized person is given 1 box to stand over, which allows that person to see over the fence. And the shorter person is given 2 boxes, which allows that person to see over the fence. That's equity. That's giving people according to their needs. The next picture is of reality, that there are some people who already have a lot who are getting even more right now in our economy. The person who was tall is standing on top of 7 boxes and can see way, way past even the field of baseball that they're watching. The medium height person is still standing on their 1 box. And the person who is disadvantaged is even lower. They have him depicted down in a ditch. Life, liberty, 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 and the pursuit of happiness. Liberation is when all barriers are removed and everyone can see, regardless of what their challenges may or may not be. During our gatherings and our check-ins, we've had numerous conversations. Several times we talked about gardening. I see some of the gardeners on here, and I told you about my challenges with gardening. I think I'm going to give up. But anyway, some had successful yields, and some had challenging wildlife who ate the beginning of their successful yields. That was me. So I want to close sharing a scripture that talks about sowing seeds. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. I apologize. This comes from Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 9 and 18 and 23. This was my lectionary from this week. That day, Jesus went out of the house and sat down beside the lake. Such large crowd gathered around him that he climbed into a boat and sat down. The whole crowd was standing on the shore. He said many things to them in parables. A farmer went out to scatter seed. As he was scattering seed, some fell on the path, and birds came and ate it. Other seeds fell on rocky soil where the soil swallowed it. They sprouted immediately, because the soil wasn't deep. But when the sun came up, it scorched the plants and they dried up because they had no roots. Other seeds fell among thorny plants. The thorny plants grew and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and bore fruit. In one case, a yield of 100 to 1, in another case, a yield of 60 to 1, in another case, a yield of 30 to 1. Everyone has ears should pay attention. Verse 18, consider then the parable of the farmer. Whenever people hear the word about the kingdom and don't understand it, the evil one comes and carries off what was planted in their hearts. This is the seed that was sown on the path. As for the seed that was spread on rocky ground, this refers to people who hear the word and immediately receive it joyfully. Because they have no roots, they last for only a little while. When they experience distress or abuse because of the word, they immediately fall away. As for the seed that was spread among thorny plants, this refers to those who hear the word, but the worries of their life and the false appeal of wealth choke the word and it bears no fruit. As for what was planted on good soil, this refers to those who hear and understand and bear fruit and produce. In one case, a yield of 100 to 1, in another case, a yield of 60 to 1, in another case, a yield of 30. My brothers and sisters, we are scattering seeds, just like in this story. And the world is watching us see what grows. They are standing on the shores waiting to see what happens next. We cannot let the evil one carry off what God has planted inside of us, and that is to look out for each other. We have to have deep roots of compassion and steadfastness in order to get through what we're going through right now. Wealth cannot continue to choke the word and keep us from bearing fruit. For those of us who hear and understand, who bear fruit and produce, we must clean house, uncover all the stuff that has been strategically put out of our sight or reworded in a way that's keeping us from growing as a nation, where everyone will feel welcomed and part. We have work to do, our brothers and sisters. There is a plan for us. There is a word from the Lord. We have to put to practice what John Wesley has asked us to do. And in our prayer time, pray for this world, pray for each other, pray for the people who are getting sick. We have to be in a mindset of prayer. And with that, let us pray. We thank you, Lord. Praise your name, and we devote ourselves to cleaning up the mess that has been uncovered. And we want to scatter seeds on good ground so that we can build a healthy, inclusive, equitable community. We pray that the arrest that we're seeing, not only here in the United States, but all out the world, will end. Lord, we thank you that we come together as a church, lead, guide, and direct us and our nation towards transformation that will benefit all of the world. The world is watching each other. The three pandemics are challenging us to treat each other with compassion. Lead us to wise decisions that acknowledge life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as one nation for all people. As we gather for meals in our homes today, Lord, as we bless our food, we come together thanking you that we know that if we have justice, we will also have peace. So, Lord, we ask you to bless ourselves and our families and our friends and the meals that we gather around today, opening tables all over the world for diverse voices, locally, nationally, and globally. We'll come together and try to bring this pandemic under wraps. whether it's the health pandemic or the economic pandemic or the injustice pandemic that we're seeing. We are all God's people, God, and we are asking for your goodwill to be a part of our lives. Lord, we accept the power and freedom that you gave us to resist evil and injustice and oppression. Lord, we are asking that the individual practices come into play. Lord, there is a pandemic that is controlling the way we would naturally like to live. But until that pandemic is lifted, God, we ask for safe guidance, protect and strengthen the workers and their families who put their lives on the line for us, especially as we juggle what we're going to do with our teachers as they join the essential workers who are already out there. Lord, we ask for economics to come together in a way where people do not feel the strain of want. So Lord, we thank you and we praise you for all that you are going to do in our lives. Inspire us, God, to use Jesus as our example as we look out for the least, the lost, and the left out in our nation. Bless the leadership of this world, of our churches. Bless the citizens and the members of the churches. Please guide us to not make hasty decisions. We've already seen where going back too soon or opening too soon has affected our numbers of infection. God, we just ask you to lead, guide, and direct as only you can. Lord, we ask you to look at our world and church partnerships. Keep them strong and healthy as they move forward, God. Open businesses and schools in a healthy way. Lord, we praise your name as we join together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
who
art
art
in
in
heaven,
heaven,
hallowed be
hallowed
thy
be thy
name.
name.
Thy
Thy
kingdom come,
kingdom come,
thy will
thy
be
will
done
be done
on
on earth
earth as it is in
as it
heaven.
is in heaven.
Give
Give
us
us
this
this
day our
day
daily bread,
daily bread,
and forgive us our
our
trespasses, as
trespasses,
we forgive those who
those who
trespass against
trespass
us.
against us,
And lead us
and
not
lead
into
us into
temptation,
temptation,
but
but
deliver us from
deliver us
evil.
from evil.
For
For
thine
thine
is
is
the
the kingdom,
kingdom,
and the power,
and the
and the
power,
glory
and the
forever.
glory.
Amen.